Good evening and welcome to tonight's March 18th Planning Commission. I'll call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. Ms. Howe, would you please call the roll?
Mr. King? Ms. Williams? Present. Ms. Schilling? Here. Mayor Anderson?
Present.
Mr. Magner?
Present?
Ms. Schulist?
Here.
Mr. Cowley?
Here.
Mr. McDonald?
Here.
Mr. Pate?
Here.
Thank you. If you will, feel free to join me tonight for our opening prayer and Pledge of Allegiance. My Lord, I especially thank you for our community, our country, and the freedoms that we have. I ask tonight for your guidance and wisdom and appreciate your assistance with tonight's meeting. I thank you. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. We'll move to approval of tonight's agenda. Do we have a first?
Move to approve.
Mayor Anderson. Do we have a second?
Second.
Mr. Cowley. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Cowley?
Aye.
Ms. Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling? Aye. Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Schulist?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pate?
Aye.
Next item on the agenda is citizens' comments. We didn't have anybody.
There's none.
No signed up for tonight. We will move on for the approval of the February 11th meeting minutes. Do we have a first?
Motion to approve. Second.
McDonald and Pape. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pate?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
I'm sustained since I wasn't here on the
Thank
meeting.
you. Ms. Schilling? Aye. Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Schulist?
Aye.
Mr. Cowley?
Abstain.
Approval is approved. Next item, we have one item on the old business. This is PC Resolution PC01-25, Commercial Site Plan Fairview Self-Storage. This is a 2.72 acres, map 47, parcel 6. Current zoning is commercial general. Property owner, Deborah Thompson, Living Trust. If we will first start with staff report, please.
You first viewed this project back in January. There was a deferral. At that point, during the meeting, there were several comments made by the Planning Commission, particularly about the requested exceptions. They have a exception for the tree bank request, a sidewalk requirement exception request, underground detention exception request, steep slope exception request, and a building material exception request. The building material exception request has changed. They have added brick to at least 70% brick to 3 sides of the building, with the rear of the building being requested to be less than 70%. And they've also added a few trees along Highway 100 with the front landscape plan. The applicant is still requesting above ground detention. The site plan is up on the screen. The above ground detention is located to the rear of the property. And the applicant is here tonight to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
McDonald, Schulist. Before we open up commentary, do we have a representative tonight of this application? Sir, if you feel free to If you will, state your name and address for the record, if you will.
Ellsworth, 2620 Handaside.
Thank you. We will open it up to the Planning Commission for comments and questions.
Chair, if I may.
Mr. McDonald?
I made the motion to approve for the sake of being able to discuss it. I myself still remain against it. We discussed it before. I just think from a future planning perspective, looking at the potential use of the property located directly behind this with the covering that is on this illustration being off property, most likely won't remain there long. I think an above ground detention pond in an area where there could be a lot of foot traffic, a lot of commercial in the future, to me just doesn't make sense. But that's my opinion. Thank you.
So we're actually going to plant some trees in back as well, in addition to the current cover that's there. And also the above-ground detention, unfortunately wasn't allowed to make last meeting, but my colleagues were. And I think there might have been maybe a little confusion about what.
Do you mind talking a little bit more into the speaker?
Sorry about that. Is
Thank
that
you.
better?
Thank you.
There we go.
There, good.
So the above-ground detention, I think there might have been a little bit of confusion from what I heard and from when I watched the video about what the end result looks like. It doesn't look like the above-ground right down here with CMU block and retaining walls. It doesn't look like the above-ground detention that are required in the residential neighborhoods. This is actually very similar to what they would do in Franklin, where it's actually called a water garden, and there's no block. It looks natural. Willows end up growing in it. It's grass. It's a divot in the ground. So it certainly isn't an eyesore like I think what was in mind when discussing above-ground detention. But even with that being said, we have natural cover from the trees in the back, and we're also going to plant some more to
We have
block any.
sorry, sir. Do we have a landscape plan that we can bring up, please?
Bree, will you go to the next? Yep, there you go.
So according to your comment there, I think the only added is along Fairview Boulevard, but the detention itself is not screened from the property line. Is that correct?
So with the current trees that are going to be left there, it's fully screened, but those, if you're looking plan north, those trees are going to be moved back slightly to the corner to fully screen or continue the screen of any above-ground detention. And again, it's literally a divot in the ground. It doesn't look like a lot of the commercial or more industrial detention ponds that are around.
If I could just add as a clarification to Mr. McDonald, and please correct me, Mr. McDonald, if I misinterpreted your comment, but a lot of the vegetation to the northwest, Plan Northwest, is outside of this property line, but we're relying on that for screening. Is that correct?
And some of the current vegetation that's on the property line now, on our side of it, or,
That will not
Opposite
be
side of it.
disturbed?
no, we're not touching it.
Okay.
Specifically for this reason.
Remind us what is behind, I think it's another lot, obviously, but what is on that lot behind this
Nothing.
screen space?
Chair, if I may, I can clarify that.
Donald.
It's the large open space. If you were to pull into the Walmart parking lot and where it dead ends, it just opens up into that area, which to me makes sense for that to be a potential road back there one day, or more parking with more commercial access, restaurants, shopping, whatever it might be. It's just, I'm just one opinion of 9, but it's from the perspective of future planning and good planning, to me it seems problematic. But
For a self-storage use, again, I think we might have discussed it at some point before. I would love it if we had as much foot traffic as a retailer, but we don't.
No, sir, I didn't mean to confuse anyone. I'm not referring to the foot traffic that your commercial space will bring in. I'm just talking in the future as that area develops It's not going to be residential, it's going to be commercial, it'll probably be like a strip mall setting, or who knows what it will be, but it's a large canvas for a lot of opportunity. If it was tucked away in the corner and it's going to sit behind you and there's nothing back there, it's a different conversation. But I think with that particular location and the potential of what that property could be behind you,
I would think there'd be enough
It's a
space
concern.
between us and whatever future developer comes in and builds something there. That shouldn't be a problem. I would think maybe in a residential area it might be more of a problem.
But I'm going to stick with where I'm at on that. But I do appreciate your words.
No problem.
Just a point of clarification, did you mention that there would be no disturbance to any vegetation that's on y'all's property line on the northwestern portion?
Right, so we have it clouded out. The area that we're just leaving is all green space.
Bree, could you put up ClickShare? Yeah, just from this image, it looks like you are correct. That area in green would not be disturbed, but am I correct in that area is outside the property line, or is that in the property line?
Their property line runs along the line of the mouse here.
And so you're showing proposed contours all throughout the extents of the site. I guess if we're grading those areas, how are we not disturbing the vegetation?
That's a question to me. By the large trees that are there, we're not going to touch them. We're going to leave them. Where the detention is.
I
we're
may have
gonna-
misheard you. It just sounded like we were not going to disturb vegetation on this property, but
No. We're-
okay.
Where
My
the
fault
line
then.
is, yeah. Sorry, I should have been more clear.
It's all good.
Sir, if I may too ask, why was the decision to not address the masonry coverage on the rear side, since that will be visible to future developments?
Yeah, so we've decided to fully brick all three sides. So that's facing Fairview Boulevard, and then east and west there, north and south. And the back of it, we figured we're going to have the small line on the bottom, but it's going to be covered with trees, and it's the back of a building.
So the rear elevation, okay, thank you, is the one here. And the portion of EFS is at grade below the datum line? It's everything above?
Hi, my name's Daniel Kiley. Above the yellow line on the back is the EFS. The yellow line down is masonry.
Okay. So just my comment here is, we potentially had a motion on the floor in January that we would provide masonry on all four sides and that we would address the above-ground detention. And so I think of anything that we talked about on this commission, those two were still of the highest points that was going to be moved forward, yet we deferred the submission. So for me, I appreciate that you've addressed the other three elevations, but the fact that the vegetation that you're representing here is outside of your property line. And so anybody else who's going to improve those properties, that elevation is going to be highly visible.
You'd like more brick on the back?
Yes, we would like,
We can do
me
that.
personally, I would like to see
Honestly, since
all
we.
four sides
since we-
addressed per the,
Sure. I think we can do that. What we would most likely do, is it 70%?
Yeah.
What we could do, instead of having basically 100% brick on three sides, we'll just 70% all around, and we could address that back if you need us to.
any commentary from the planning commission based on that applicant comment?
I think that satisfies what I would prefer. The 70% brick on all sides.
Not a problem. done.
We can get back to the original conversation, but I think we should entertain a motion for that amendment if anyone feels compelled. I will move to amend PC 0125 to maintain the required 70% masonry coverage on all four sides.
Mr. Magner,
Sir.
could we clarify that a little bit just for the record to amend PC Resolution 0125 to remove Condition 6, building material exception request to allow for brick patterned ephes with colors similar to natural brick material for west elevation only?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Greer.
Wagner, at risk of overcomplicating it, I think that's appropriate to remove the exception. Also think you need to add a condition of approval that the plan comply with the 70% requirement. So I would suggest an amendment to remove condition 6 and add a condition of approval that it will comply with the 70% brick requirement. Move 6, add a condition of approval, comply with the 70% requirement.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. Do we have a second on this amendment? Second. Sorry, who did we get here? Is it Ms.
It was
Williams?
a tie.
Any additional commentary on that? Ms. Howe, would you call the vote for the amendment number 1?
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Ulyss,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Pape,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson.
Aye.
Amendment carries. We're back to the original submission. We did not still address the underground retention, as that was one of the other second items that was prevalent in the January conversation. So just want to make sure that the board has plenty of opportunity. Mr. Pape.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, I'll just, I'm going to kind of echo Commissioner McDonald in that I just think, I appreciate all the efforts you guys are making, but we still have several exceptions they're asking for. And I just think that the city, if we're going to be considering an application to grant that many exceptions, we should be holding out for something that is just more desirable for the city of Fairview. So for that reason, I'm just not supportive of the application.
Mr. Greer, did that condition have a specific number associated with the underground detention?
That would be condition number 4, underground detention exception request.
I will make a motion here to remove the condition 4 and of underground detention and request that the project comply with having a below-grade detention.
Second.
Wagner, McDonald, any additional conversation, questions of the PC? Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Ulyss,
Aye.
Mr. Pape,
Aye.
Amendment number 2 carries. Back to the original submission, PC 0125.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. McDonald, yes.
I just asked if staff could elaborate a little bit on the 5th item on there, the steep slope exception, what all is being requested exactly. if you guys have any additional information that you could provide on that one.
So the applicant can correct me if I'm wrong here, but the hatched areas are the areas that are exceeding 20% slopes. And so if you were to go to the next sheet, you can see that these areas are being disturbed with the proposed site plan. Is that correct?
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Evans with Evans Engineering, and I'll help try to field that question. But yes, the areas that are hatched, kind of the dotted pattern there, are the areas that exceed the 20%. They're existing grades. We'll definitely point out on the right side of the page there, the one that looks more like a moon. That's purely where fill had been placed on this site before. They'd kind of leveled out a pad or put some fill in their piers before. And so it's just kind of the slopes of that, what's left there now. So I would not say those were natural slopes that exceeded 20%. So not to rule it out, but that's wanted to touch on that part of it. The other part is the part where the swale comes down through there, and there are some slopes, at the banks there that exceed the 20%.
Thank you all for that response.
I appreciate, Mr. McDonald, you asking that question. I also understand if we're going to develop Fairview Boulevard, and I do agree that does look to be artificially created slopes, that does have to be addressed. So I think that's not quite to the same extent of us trying to preserve our natural habitat, out within the community. Any additional comments, questions? All right, thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote for item PC 0125?
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Ms. Ulyss?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. Pate?
No.
Item PC 0125 passes. Thank you. Moving on to new business, item PC 0525. Rezoning 7711 Horn Tavern Road. This is a 2.2 acre map 22 parcel 136. Current zoning is RS40. Requested zoning R20. Property owner Jeff Pack. Mr. Greer, would you please read your staff report?
Mr. Pack has submitted a request to rezone the entire 2.2 acre parcel located at 7711 Horn Tavern Road. The property is currently zoned RS40, single-family residential, and contains one single-family residence. The rezoning request is for the entire parcel to R20, 1 and 2 family residential district. The properties to the east across Horn Tavern Road are zoned R15, single-family residential, and contain the Pepper Tree residential development. The properties to the north, south, and west are all zoned RS40, and each contain a single-family detached residence. The Fairview Forward 2040 comp plan designates this property as legacy residential medium, which lists appropriate zoning districts as RS40 and R20, and the appropriate land use as single-family detached residential. The requested zone district of R20 is in alignment with the legacy residential medium future land use classification. Additionally, the owner applicant has stated to staff their desire is to construct 2 single-family residences on the property. The construction of single-family residences would also be in alignment with the legacy residential medium future land use classification. Staff recommends that the Planning Commission provide a favorable recommendation to the Board of Commissioners to approve this request to rezone the 2.2 acre portion of tax map 022, parcel 136.00, located at 7711 Horn Tavern Road, from the current zoning of RS40 to R20, with the following conditions of approval. The condition 1, this rezoning request will be placed on Thursday, April 3rd, Board of Commissioners meeting agenda for consideration, with the potential for the public hearing and second and final read being held at the Thursday, May 1st, 2025 Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Greer.
Mr. Chair,
Mayor Anderson.
did you?
No, I'm calling for motion.
Move for approval.
Thank you. And do we have a second?
Second.
Chair.
Mayor Anderson.
Okay, so if anyone has been to that location, am I correct, Ethan, that Pepper Tree's across the street?
That is correct.
Okay.
Where it says RS 15 is the Pepper Tree subdivision.
Yes, so that's a brand-new subdivision, and this proposed rezoning to two single-family homes. If you notice, Plan North, close to Horn Tavern on that proposed R20, there's a house that is very dilapidated. I have been called by probably half the people in that subdivision wondering if there was something ever going to be done with that house because it's in really, really bad shape, and that's what they see when they leave their beautiful new subdivision is that house. So with Mr. Pack asking for R20 zone and two single-family homes, that is gonna, in my opinion, clean up that area and remove that house. So I just wanted to point that out. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for clarity, that was Anderson McDonald. Do we have a representative tonight of the application? No. All right, we'll open it up for additional comments, questions. I'll start with one. I haven't checked this myself, but have we taken a look to see if we rezone this, that two properties will be maintained with appropriate width, setback, and street frontage?
Yes, it is possible to maintain. There are some challenges on the site with drainage and some water that exists on the site. Obviously, it's 2.2 acres, RS40. You could get two houses on there. You could have two 1 acre lots with 2.2 acres. The proposed reasoning of why we asked the applicant to come in at R20 is due to the setbacks that would be needed to be able to build two houses due to right about where it says P on proposed, there is not really a stream, but it's a deep drainage ditch that runs along that western property line. And so trying to be able to fit two houses on there gets quite a bit challenging with 1 acre lots. So the applicant was looking to what are their options to be able to construct two units there. And R20 allows the setbacks and allows the availability to be able to build two single-family dwellings.
Thank you, Mr. Greer.
Mr. Chairman,
John?
if I could just ask Ethan, just to clarify for everyone too, based on the required setbacks, it would be difficult to exceed two on that property, right?
That's correct, and with the challenges of the site that exist.
Thank you.
And I will also note that the property to the south of this is the applicant's primary residence. So this is his driveway is along that eastern blue line that comes down from Horn Tavern. So it is the property directly in front of him that he also owns.
Thank you for asking that, Mr. McDonald. That's helpful. Any additional comments, questions? Ms. Howe, would you please call for the vote?
Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Schulist,
Aye.
Mr. Callie,
Aye.
Mr. Pape.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Moving on, item PC 0625, final plat Cedar Crest Phase 2. This is an 18.42 acre map. Parcel 125, current zoning, commercial general. Property owner is Meritage Homes. First, Mr. Greer, would you please read your staff report?
T-Square Engineering has submitted on behalf of Meritage Homes a final plat for Phase 2 of the Cedar Crest subdivision. The Cedar Crest subdivision contains a total of 137 townhouse units on 27.57 acres. Phase 2 of the subdivision contains 89 of the 137 total units. Phase 1 contained the balance of that. Phase 2 will extend one public right-of-way, Cedar Crest Lane, that is being created in Phase 1 of the Cedar Crest subdivision. Phase 2 will also create 3 open spaces and 1 detention pond. The 2 properties to the north are zoned RS40. The property to the west is Phase 1 of the Cedar Crest subdivision, which is zoned Commercial General. The properties to the south are zoned R20, and the property to the east is zoned R20. 2 of the surrounding parcels contain single-family detached residential land uses, while all other adjacent properties are currently vacant. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the final plat for Phase 2 of the Cedar Crest subdivision in order to create 89 multifamily units, extend 1 public right-of-way, Cedar Crest Lane, create 1 detention pond, create 3 open spaces, and install all necessary stormwater, water, and wastewater infrastructure as resubmitted on February 27th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve PC 0625-A.
Callie? Do we have a second?
Second.
Sorry, was that Mr. Pape?
Yes.
Thank you. Do we have a representative tonight for this application? Good evening, sir. If you just state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Alex Holsky. I'm with T-Square Engineering at 111 Southeast Parkway Court in Franklin.
Thank you very much. I will open it up now for comments, questions.
Chairman, I have a question.
Williams.
And this can be for yourself or for Ethan. I noticed in the project summary, it indicated that this location's on a FEMA firm flood hazardous area. Can you explain what that means and why you want to build on a location such as that?
So that note that you're referring to is basically boilerplate language stating that FEMA, which flood maps the entire country, there are certain zones where you can and cannot build, and it's saying that everywhere that we are proposing to build is not in a floodplain. To your question?
I think I could maybe clarify, Ms. Williams, it's in our staff report that a portion of this property is located within the flood hazard area. The area of their disturbance is outside of that flood hazard area, so they are not disturbing any of the flood hazard area that is on the property.
I had a question. I think there is a utility enclosement. It's there kind of on the southeast end. Can you describe that? I don't know that I saw a detail for. Is there an enclosure around that or a screen that's being provided?
The pump station?
Yes, sir.
Correct.
Okay. Correct in that. Do we have landscaping? Is it a fence?
Yes, I believe there is landscaping, and
Okay.
there's an entire building plan that was submitted with it as part of the construction documents.
Okay, thank you.
That is the pump station for Water Authority of Dixon County, and they do have requirements to have that fenced, and there are a few landscaping items that will be going around it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Any additional thoughts, questions, comments? Thanks, sir. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Callie?
Aye.
Mr. Pape?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Schulis?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Moving on, PC 0725, Commercial Site Plan Walmart Fuel Center, map 46, parcel 82.04, current zoning, commercial general, property owner, Walmart Inc. Mr. Greer, would you please start us off with your staff report?
Carlson Consulting has submitted on behalf of Walmart a site plan to construct a 1,618 square foot convenience store and associated gas pumps on property located at 7100 Hopgood Road in front of the existing Walmart building and parking area. The site plan also illustrates all required parking, stormwater infrastructure, landscaping, and all necessary water and wastewater infrastructure. The parcel is zoned commercial general. No portion of the property is located within a flood hazard area. All surrounding properties are zoned commercial general. The property to the north contains a self-storage facility. The property to the east contains a single-family detached residential structure, which would be a legal non-conforming use given the property is zoned commercially. The property to the south across Adele Road is vacant. The property to the west across Hopgood Road contains the existing Walmart. The parcel contains 22.16 total acres with the property proposed building, gas pumps, parking, and stormwater infrastructure cover. No, that's not correct. 2.16. Cover nearly the entire parcel. The proposed building is located to face Hopgood Road with the gas pumps and canopy located between Hopgood and the building. The property is accessed off both Adele Road and Hopgood Road. The access point on Adele Road, staff had proposed to the applicant to have a right-in, right-out only access point. Ultimately, the applicant chose to have that be a full intersection with the ability to make a left-hand turn onto Adele Road. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the Walmart Fuel Center Site Development Plan, a 1,618 square foot convenience store and associated gas pumps on the property located at 7100 Hopgood Drive, along with required parking, stormwater infrastructure, and landscaping, all necessary water and wastewater infrastructure as resubmitted on February 28th, 2025. They do have one condition of approval. They have an exception from the City of Fairview Design Review Manual for 70% brick requirement. The elevation is within the presentation tonight, and it is to allow Walmart to maintain their same look that they have on the front of the Walmart Supercenter onto the same frontage that they have on their convenience store. We can get more into that once we have a motion and get into the elevations.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Entertain a motion.
Make a motion, approve PC 725.
Callie?
Second.
Schulist? Do we have a representative tonight for this application? Sir, if you'll state your name and address for the record.
Good evening. My name is Victor Ramirez. I'm with Carlson Consulting Engineers, 7068 Ledgestone Commons, Bartlett, Tennessee. I'm here to answer any questions you might have tonight.
Thank you very much. We'll open this up for additional comments, questions.
Bree, do you mind going to the next slide?
I'll start off by saying I appreciate this slide with the landscaping. I was initially concerned about what we would see on the neighbor to the plan east, but it is screened, so that I appreciate. However, my one additional comment is we just required a previous applicant, which would just be plan north a couple hundred yards to meet the elevation requirements. So personally, I don't see how I can accept this project with this, even though it does bear the name of Walmart, which is a large retailer in town, when we don't allow that to an adjacent property. So personally, I'd like to open that up, see if there's any additional comment, questions, or arguments.
Bree, do you mind going to the next slide? So the area, and I'll allow the applicant to speak as well, the area of particular interest is the blue section on both of these drawings, on the building right elevation and building front elevation. The blue is EIFS material, which is what is used on the front of the existing Walmart to maintain their color scheme and their logo. And so the rest of the building is constructed out of brick and stone. And so that's the only particular corner that they're asking for that exception.
Thank you, Mr. Greer, and I could appreciate that, but I can also think that this applicant can still achieve the same aesthetic that you're looking for. I know you have, or they have, standards, design standards as a corporation, but, you know, the logo on this particular elevation is relatively large. We all know that it's associated with Walmart. There should be plenty of area to still achieve an EFS look and also meet our intent, and that's my personal opinion. Mr. McDonald?
Just a quick question to tack onto this conversation. How, what are you missing the percentage by? It doesn't seem like it would be much.
So the front right now, we're showing about 45%. And then on the right, we have about 42. In the rear, we have 80%. And in the left, we have 79% brick.
The aggregate of that is, do you have any idea what it is, what they're falling short of?
The requirement is 70%
Two-side.
on every elevation, so
So two sides.
they're
are
about
50.
25% short on the front elevation and then about 28% short on the right elevation.
I just have one follow-up question. Was the original Walmart building granted an exception to the 70% rule, or was that not in place at the time?
Great question, Mr. Pape. I do not have that answer for you, but I do know that the frontage of Walmart is significantly larger than this building, and so their portion of EFS on there with their logo is, you know, percentage-wise much smaller than what the percentage on here would be.
Yeah, I'll just follow that up. I agree with our chairman that it's, you know, we just told somebody else no on the waiver, so that's the tough part. I do think, you know, I get it, the branding, but I do think Walmart has a lot of branding. The canopy has no waivers, correct, Mr. Greer?
That's correct. The canopy does not. The canopy also does not fall within the design review manual for having to be brick for the canopy elevation.
Right, and the canopy, just to point out, has significant branding as well. So if it's a branding issue, I think there's a lot of Walmart branding that we're permitting too, so.
If I may.
Mr. McDonald?
Do you all have a second option of what that would look like if you were not granted the exception that you're requesting?
I'm going to go ahead and jump in here. My name is Rob Klimpel. I'm with SGA Design Group. We're the architectural consultant for Walmart. I'm the architect that actually designed this, so bear with me. I'm kind of plugged up, so if I'm talking too loudly, tell me to tone it down a little bit. So yeah, we can look at that. Again, obviously, there's two things we're looking at. One is just the branding of it. Walmart's preference would be to have this blue badge, so to speak, on the corner as a brand identifier along with their signage. The canopy, you're correct, has the blue as well on there. And the other second part really is about the continuity. We've talked about that before, about what the store is showing architecturally, what the language vernacular is there, trying to be consistent with this smaller, much smaller building. And the existing building has quite a bit of EFS as far as the percentage of the masonry to the EFS. It's on par. There are multiple ways we can attack this. You know, start kind of maybe stripping some of the branding in a different way, communicating that differently. In many jurisdictions, we have to tone down the blue a little bit, reduce that EFS a little bit, and increase the brick or the stone, or do some other kind of architectural enhancements to communicate that branding. So I think if that is an obstacle, a hinge point here in the conversation about the percentage of the brick, you know, we're exceeding that on two sides, we're deficient on two, we totally admit that, and there's a strategic way architecturally that we can minimize that EFS, increase the brick, or if we have to eliminate that blue corner and go solid brick, we can just put our sign there. But unfortunately, with the recognition of that signage on the brick, it starts to kind of bleed into that color, so it's not recognizable. And then we have the landscaping that we're trying to do on the perimeter of the site, which reduces the site visibility of that as well. So that's where the canopy branding really kind of is now important. So yeah, architecturally, there's some ways we can look at this, kind of a hierarchy. Again, Walmart's preference would be to try to keep at least a little bit of that blue on the building as well as the canopy, but we'll entertain some options.
Mr. Chair?
Mayor Anderson.
So with the screening and with the trees on the right side of the building, if you kept the blue and the signage on the front, would you be able to add more stone brick combination to the right side of the building where there's going to be a tree screen anyway, leaving your front with your signage to be shown with the backing of the blue? Does that make sense?
So are you referring to that corner with the
The
blue
upper
badge that
left.
we're talking about, maybe raising that stone wainscot up a little bit to reduce the ephes and increase the stone texture,
Because you're,
maybe?
well, either brick or stone, however because you're not far off. Because of your rear is completely brick and stone.
Right.
Your
Right.
left side is completely brick and stone. Almost 3/4 brick and stone in the front. I believe you're not far off. So if there was some type of adaptation of that left side, because it doesn't have signage on it and it's going to be screened anyway, I think if you just adapt that a little bit more to some brick and stone maybe coming in, and then even the blue could turn and be a little bit less ephes on that side. I think your signage plus the blue that wraps would work as far as the combination.
Yeah, I totally agree. That's a great concession. Something that just came to mind, what we could do is on that corner element, reading that as a separate component within the composition there, we could raise that stone another 2 feet, which reduces that kind of blue corner badge. And then on the left, excuse me, does it say right side? I better put my glasses on.
It's the right side.
right.
The right
upper
side, which
left-hand
is.
corner.
It's the right
Right,
side.
which has the blue badge. If we move that control joint that you see between the blue and the brick, we move it another 2 to 4 feet over. So it's kind of 2/3, 1/3, 1/3 blue, 2/3 brick. I think that would be acceptable to Walmart, still read as a really nice branding corner without dominating and being overbearing with the blue, and get really close to the aggregate total of the brick amount that
So
we're
you
looking
should be
for.
able to keep what's on the front, then just make a turn to just show the blue.
I think he was also raising the
Yeah, just a little
Yeah.
blade of like 4 feet of the blue rather than
Yeah.
the 12 feet that you see there, and then raise that stone.
So the
to
stone
kinda read a
band
little-
all the way around,
Yeah,
raise
yeah.
it up.
Yeah. I think that would be acceptable to us, yes.
I mean, I agree that there is definitely a way to achieve closer. What I don't know is we can't quantify that here as a percentage. I guess I'm trying to help the application, but also make sure that we're staying within a reasonable legalistic description of what we're asking and willing to accept.
I mean, that would be a condition, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I might kind of interject real quickly, on the right elevation, according to the calculations I came up with, the brick is 42%, the stone is 20%, the ephes is 38%. Hopefully that marries up with what has been submitted. So if we half that blue badge on the right side, that switches over 19%, minus 19 for the blue, additional 19 to the brick, which pulls that up to 61% brick, 20% stone. That's without raising the stone. That's just splitting
Just
that
just
on
moving
the
your
right
control
side.
joint.
And then if we go another 2 feet, you're probably looking at least 5 or 6% more on each side, so.
And so, and then on the front, you're also going to reduce the ephes zone.
That's
Is that
correct.
correct?
Yeah, raise that stone on the front, and then as it wraps around that corner to that first control joint that we're talking about moving, is raise that up. So that reads, that corner piece reads a little bit differently now. It's interlocked to the aggregate, the whole, but it reduces that ephes to get us in the ballpark of the brick that we're looking
Can you
for.
please remind me, is that about a 20-foot section there of ephes on the front?
I'm sorry, can you?
Is that about?
There's a
20
dimension
is that
on
about
there.
Yeah, is that
We
about a
just can't read
20-foot
it.
section on the ephes band on the front elevation?
On the front elevation, it's 13 feet, 10 inches wide.
Thank you,
Right.
Mr. Greer.
Correct, thank you.
And overall dimension, sir?
Overall dimension of the width of the building,
Yes,
54 feet.
54. So it looks like, just real rough math, and I'm not for sure how high you're going to raise your stone, but it appears, is that a control joint as well, or is that just a transition of ephes to brick on the front elevation? Just so that I get the wording correct here.
Typically at those junctures between two different materials, we have control.
You are gonna have a control.
joint, plus the storefront there, that's.
Yes, sir. So, roughly another 6 feet, if you don't raise the stone, should get you close to within percentage. However, if you want to manipulate that, I'm sure you can achieve that. So, I don't want to speak for the entire planning commission, but I think we need to discuss before we make a motion for an amendment here.
Mr. Chairman, can I ask a question of the
Mr.
applicant?
Hogan.
Based on what you described, if the board, and just what it sounds like they're considering, if the board were to approve this but remove the exception for the 70% brick requirement, just say it needs to fall within that requirement, do you think the applicant could comply with that? Just based on what you described, the changes you could make, could you comply with the 70%?
Yes, I would say, correct me if I'm wrong, technically no, because the brick, unless you're combining the brick and the stone into one category,
Well, that is the.
right?
that
The
is
language says
percentage.
brick, so I'm saying,
Yeah.
I just want to make sure that I'm
The
understanding.
brick and the stone is one category.
Good,
Masonry.
okay.
Yeah.
Want to play,
Yeah,
the
I just think,
language.
no, I just think it would be simpler for them if they could just say, we'd just like to remove that exception, and then it gives you options, however you need to get there.
I
It gives you
agree.
options to rework it.
I don't
I
want to
don't
play.
know
I
if
don't
I
want to play
can-
designer here. I just want you all to figure it out, and we can.
Yeah.
I think we can get close to 70%, but the front, I don't think we'll get to 70% just because of the amount of glass we have in the front. Looking at facade by facade rather than the whole.
Legalistic, we cannot amend with close. I have to have a definition here, so I think I would like some feedback here from the planning commission. We either designate a percentage that we think is close, or it has to be meet the guidelines.
Meet the guidelines.
Okay. All right, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, if I may ask a question before we
Mr. McDonald?
take that amended motion here. If we remove the exception that's listed and we approve this, they go back to the drawing board to figure it out and they can't get to where they need to be. What would that situation look like?
That would be on the applicant to resolve their conflicts with the approval for them to come within compliance with the design review manual of the city of Fairview.
I guess my question was poorly worded. If they, naturally, yeah, if they can't do it, they can't do it. However, I guess what I'm trying to do, and I'm just going to speak my brain here, if they got as close as they possibly could get, they can't make their signage work the way their branding needs to look, but they got 68%, right? Could they come back and get back on the agenda to request an exception with an updated amount of information, or would they, I'm just curious, like, what that would do to the overall process of the application?
Yes, they could ultimately come back and ask for that exception at a later date if they're unable to attain it.
So I think the easiest way, and we're probably headed that way, would to remove it, see if you guys can make it happen, and if not, we just may have to have another discussion and with whatever you come up with with the best effort you have. Is that?
I think the interpretation is, generally speaking, we understand the condition here. If we're within a percentage or two, I don't think that would hold you up in the future, other than you still might need to get that approval.
Is there a percentage that y'all would
Be willing to accept?
be willing to accept as far as like the requirement is 70%. On their front elevation, they're at 46% brick. If they got to 50, does that satisfy the planning commission? Or their right side elevation, they're at 42%. If they got to 60 for the right elevation, does that satisfy the
My only
the planning
concern with that,
commission?
Mr. Greer, and I appreciate the comment, is glazed areas is a huge factor of our percentages here. And so we're not changing the glazing. All we're trying to do is address the masonry and the blue corner. So it's kind of hard without us understanding the breakdown of the calculation of area for us to be able to, so that still seems low to me if I were just to, give that a gut test. And that's why it would have to be closer to 70, in my opinion.
Mr. Chair.
Aronson.
Okay, so help me to understand this. I have a business in a building that is mostly glass. So is glass a part of the, I guess I'm not understanding. Glass, in my opinion, should be subtracted from the whole and then the percentage considered. But maybe I'm wrong. So how does that work? Because my building is mostly glass. So how do we figure that?
So ultimately, that would be how the planning commission desires to interpret this, how it's stated in the zoning ordinance. I think in the past, we've always included the doors and the windows in terms of the wall area. The way it is, Curtis is bringing up the text right now. So the way it is worded is minimum of 70% brick coverage of each wall area. There is not a specific definition for wall area within the zoning ordinance. So what does wall area mean? That's up for interpretation, how the planning commission would like to apply that and interpret that. So if you all desire to say, again, it's your decision. If you wanted to say we want to remove doors and windows, then you're going to only be looking at the wall area, the structural wall areas, and say, well, it is or isn't 70% of just the wall area and removing the glass. But again, that's an interpretation because there's no clear statement in the zoning ordinance that you do include or you do not include.
So if we removed the glass area and calculated, we're more close to the correct percentage.
Mr. Applicant, did you include the glass area?
They did include the glass area. On the front building elevation, they would be very close, if not meeting the requirement. On the right elevation, they would still fall shy of the requirement with 42% brick, 38% EVIS, and 20% stone.
On the front?
On the top left corner,
Okay.
on the right-hand side.
Well, that was kind of my, that was kind of what I was getting at. If that side, because it doesn't have any signage, it has tree covering that you can't really see a lot of that elevation anyway. If, I don't know I don't know how Walmart feels about it, but if it were my building, I'd be it would be more important to me to have the front with the Walmart sign and bring that score joint over and have it wrap, but not as far as it does to meet the requirements. Am I thinking right on the glass part? Because if you have windows and doors and all of that, in my opinion, that should be subtracted from the whole, and then they should meet on the front, the requirements.
He said it was close.
Their elevation breakdown, I have the advantage of looking at it zoomed in, but it's right below the front elevation. They show 20% glass, 193 square feet, 22% ephes, 208 square feet, 12% stone, 117 square feet, and 46% brick, 441 square feet.
So if you take the total out, subtract the glass, and then divide the ephes out.
57%.
Okay.
It'd be 57% if you took out the glass. I just did the calculation while Ethan was speaking. And sorry, Mayor, not to cut you off. I just figured that would be helpful.
I'm just thinking about other buildings that have glass storefronts that it doesn't work for them. So why would we penalize the glass area of the front of the building
Yeah.
as being part of the whole? I think it should be subtracted out and then consider.
Yeah, I'll jump in and make a comment because I agree. It's the way it's worded. I think it's not overly clear in the standards, but you go further down in the standards, and then there's item 6, permissible building materials, and then it says these materials are permitted in conjunction with the 70% required brick coverage, which, you know, the way that's worded, you could say, okay, that gets mixed together, which that gets into glass and other things of that nature. But so I do think that the glass wasn't contemplated. But just to get back to kind of the start, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but it sounded like the side elevation, you guys could probably hit the 70%, make changes to that, get rid of enough blue to meet the 70.
That's
so you feel good about that. So we're talking about the front elevation now. I think Ms. Shula said it best. I think it's hard for us to try to put some condition on it to play designer. You know, the way I see it is, I think there's some flexibility and some ideas to get really close on the front elevation. You know, we could approve this tonight, take that condition out, and you guys could move full speed ahead with every part of your application except this, and you guys could figure it out. If you can't figure it out, you're welcome to come back and ask for that modification again. I think you're hearing that we want to work with you guys. We just don't want to play designer. We'd like to see the change. I think we have two options: either remove it completely or remove it on 3 sides, and on the front say it needs to be 55% or 60%. So I think we can go either way with it.
I agree with that.
Mr. Kelly, did you have a comment?
Well, you kind of, Mr. Pape kind of said a lot of stuff I wanted to say, but I'm sure the engineer, I mean, he was talking about, you know, change and stuff, and I'm sure other towns make it, you know, change your signs. I know when I drive through South Carolina, every building is low, it's all brick, and, you know, I mean, everything is. You know, the subway, all brick, everything. So I'm sure you have to, you know, do different stuff in different areas, and obviously that sign on the right is so big, we know Walmart's there. I mean, everybody in counties around us know Walmart's there. It must be a different way to put a sign up to make it work and still hit our 70%. Just my thought.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly. Other thoughts, comments?
Mr. Chair,
Marison.
I still feel like they can make this work. So however we need to, you know, work this percentage out so that the front works out so they can have their, I know that branding is very important. We've seen a lot of different businesses and the branding is important. So I know that when I opened my business, it's a franchise and they required me to do certain things for the branding. So I feel like we need to work with them on the front. I think the sides can be met with the brick and stone requirements, the sides and the rear.
Chairman.
Mr. McDonald.
So if, I know we keep going back to this, but the right side elevation that you have there, if you do what you said you're considering to do to get that to meet the proper percentages, that would require the stone to be elevated higher than what it's shown currently, correct?
then the brick line moved over towards the front, reducing that kind of a blue blade rather than a blue panel.
But is it safe to assume that, for the sake of conversation, that if you elevated the height of the stone on the right elevation, that you would have the front right of the building underneath the Walmart logo, you would want that to match the same height of the stone wrapping the corner, correct?
That's correct. As I stated before, we take that, architecturally, that corner would read as a separate piece, not really a separate piece, but it's articulated differently, so that stone would bump up 2-3 feet on the front, just like it would on the side. The blue panel would be thinner. So I think really what's in question here is, in the calculation that we need to approve, do we include the glass as part of the enhanced materials as stone and brick, or do we eliminate the glass and calculate the rest of that? I think it doesn't really matter. Either way, I think we're going to hit that 70% because we're reducing the ephes on the front. The glass is a benefit to us, actually. If we calculate it, if we take that out, I still think the ephes is going to be less than 30% of that aggregate.
Yeah,
That makes sense.
I agree. I think if we remove the exception for the left, right, and rear of the building, or the left and, I guess it's really just the right side of the building in this case, and by design, the stone would have to be elevated on the front right of the building. I'm comfortable leaving the exception on the front of the building because I know it's going to be reduced by what it is currently showing, and honestly, when I look at the renderings that are provided, I guess logic would suggest that the glass is that is hitting our requirement, I guess, in the eye test. So if it's reduced, the other three sides are conform with our regulation. I personally don't have a problem with it. I appreciate the effort that you all are giving to work with us on this as well. That being said, I think it's a phenomenal addition to that area. I think I'm hopeful that it can spark other interests along that corridor and into that property that we were discussing with the prior application. So
for simplicity, Mr. McDonald, if I were to summarize what you're saying, is the amendment would only read the exception to the front elevation and not all elevations. Is that correct, sir?
Correct, yes.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for an amendment?
I make a motion that we amend the resolution to state that exception 1 only applies to the front of the building.
Second.
Pape Anderson, any additional comments, questions on that? So exception for 70% front elevation only. Thank you. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote on the amendment?
Mr. Pape,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Schillis,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald.
Aye.
Thank you. The amendment carries 8-0. Back to the original submission. Any additional comment, questions?
Bree, can you go back 2 slides to the overall plan? So we briefly mentioned it in the staff report. The road that is right below where it says fuel station is Adele Road. That comes in off of the red light off of Highway 100 into Walmart. The entrance located on Adele Road has full access. You can make a left-hand turn out of that onto Adele, out to the red light. Staff had talked with the applicant during our staff applicant meeting and then through our comments back and forth about potentially making that a right-in, right-out condition. We currently have a pretty terrible left-in condition down here at Circle K, and we were trying to avoid that same condition happening at another red light just down the road. And so ultimately, that's not a decision that gets made by staff. That's a decision that gets made by you all, and we can make recommendations, but it would be our recommendation that we have a right-in, right-out condition. They have ran a circulation plan with that condition, and they're able to meet all of the requirements for the fire truck access and for their fuel trucks to get in and out of their site with a right-in, right-out condition there. And so if y'all would like to discuss that and make a decision on that as well.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. The interesting point to that is right now, given that it's only Walmart, it doesn't seem like that could be a perceived issue. However, if we were to develop everything else, including everything planned north, that could potentially be additional traffic.
Plan north, what's listed as the north property there or the east property are all zoned commercial. And so ultimately, you know, this being one of the few red lights that we have in town and being a major access point, that would be, you know, the goal is to have kind of a commercial center through there. And so that was kind of the viewpoint that we were taking as a staff.
Personally, I could see it either way. Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, I think what I'm hearing is the applicant's okay with doing it. It seems like that's the idea, the best outcome for future planning of this location. I don't see the harm in doing it, and it doesn't seem like it's hurting anything taking away a left turn out of that side of it.
I will note that currently with their current traffic going through their engineering, there is no requirement to have a right in, right out. Just for future use, it seemed to make more logical sense there, not having people turn left when people are coming down to the stop sign at
Right.
What about
Walmart.
the fuel truck? Do we know which direction it needs to access the tanks?
The fuel truck would be coming down Adele Road into the Adele access point. The fuel tanks are along the north property boundary, and then it would be leaving out of the Hopgood Road access point coming down and
Okay,
back
so they
out.
wouldn't be impacted by that.
They have ran a circulation plan showing that it is possible for them to accommodate that request.
But we don't have any engineering to justify the request for right in, right out, correct? It's just kind of based on other experiences around town.
I think we should always try to never make the same mistake twice.
Yes, understood.
And I think too, is that accurate that you all are okay with a right in, right out from the south side of the gas station property?
Preferably, Walmart would want that to be a full access drive, just for ease for the customer. Because essentially on Adele Road, that would be the way home after using the fuel station. So having the customer come through on the other side through Hopgood Road, it'd be more cumbersome essentially for the customer. So that's why we're trying to keep that full access drive on Adele Road.
If I could ask a question or make a note, on that south side, there is a queuing lane, am I correct? So any cars that are queued at that intersection could prove it difficult for someone trying to make a left-hand turn exiting that property. Is that, I'm looking at it, I'm pretty sure it's a queuing lane, but I'm not completely sure. Can you go to the next slide, potentially? One more. Nope, never mind. Click share, please.
I believe you're right, there's a right turn.
Yeah, there's a right and straight coming into the property.
So I get your point, but it actually may make it more difficult for someone trying to do a left-hand turn. If they're forced to go on the northern side, it may be better, is my point. But again, I'm not requiring anything. It's just merely a suggestion.
Forgive my ignorance on this one. Do we have without their cooperation, do we have the authority to enforce that request?
I don't have any knowledge of any regulation or rule because, I mean, as you know, it happens all the time. I would have to consult with my superior to see if he has any experience in that.
difficult to impose something without a regulation or a part of the ordinance to cite. So absent that, very hard to impose a condition that they're not on notice of in the ordinance to comply with.
I can also argue if I'm stopping for gas at 6 a.m., I'm probably not going to have the same traffic conditions as I am at 3:30. I'm a planner. I probably would plan ahead and think I'm going to turn right, get gas, then go shop and leave. Not everybody does that. So I guess, you're almost at the mercy. But, I mean, if we don't have a regulation that justifies an amendment, I think we are at risk here.
Yes, there's probably nothing against us requesting it. They just don't necessarily have to follow it, right? So it
And
becomes
maybe I
moot.
convinced them otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah.
What is your opinion now, I guess with that stated? Do you guys still feel the same about allowing the customer to have a left-hand turn even with the queuing lane that is presented, or sorry, existing?
Essentially, yes. It's Walmart's preference to always have a full access drive coming in and out of their fuel stations.
I like the idea to do it, but I don't think there's a legal perspective that we have to enforce it. So I think we're kind of spinning our wheels on this conversation.
I agree.
I do too.
Any additional comments, questions? Thank you, gentlemen. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote on item PC 0725?
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Ms. Shulis,
Aye.
Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Wagner,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Pape.
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Next item, item 0825. Final plat Wiley Circle subdivision, map 46H, Group C, parcel 8, current zoning RS8, property owner Wiley Circle Investment LLC. Mr. Greer, would you start us off with the staff report, please?
M2 Group has submitted a final plat for the Wiley Circle Investment Subdivision. The Wiley Circle residential development contains a total of 6 single-family detached residential lots that all have road frontage along Wiley Circle. The property is located at 7103 Wiley Circle and contains a total of 5.6 acres. The Wiley Circle subdivision contains 1.27 acres of the entire parcel. The properties to the east are zoned commercial general, properties to the south and west are zoned RS40, properties to the north are zoned RS40 and R20. Properties to the east contain a multitude of commercial and office uses. Properties to the north and south contain single-family detached residences, and the property to the west is currently vacant. The remaining portion of this property was not rezoned and contains a church and a parsonage related to the church and has an existing access point onto Fairview Boulevard. The Fairview Forward 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates this property as commercial center. The commercial center notes the appropriate land use as retail, restaurant, office, light industrial, multifamily, and civic institutional. The commercial center classification lists 2 zone districts as appropriate, CC and OPS district with changes. The CC Commercial Community District and OPS Office Professional Services District are no longer included within the Fairview zoning ordinance. The rezoning request, and now this plat is being done to create and subdivide the property to create a portion of the property that fronts along Wiley Circle to match the existing residential development in the area, and a portion that fronts along Fairview Boulevard to match the existing commercial development along the roadway. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the Wiley Circle Investment Subdivision Plat in order to create 6 single-family detached lots and install all necessary stormwater, water, wastewater infrastructure as resubmitted on March 12th, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve PC 0825.
Kelly? Do we have a second? Second. Williams? Do we have a representative tonight for this application? Good evening, sir. State your name, please, and address.
Tim Mangrum, 7326 Fernville Road.
Thank you, sir. Do we, we'll open this up for comments, questions? No comments, questions from the planning commission? Okay. Thank you, sir. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Williams? Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Wagner?
Aye.
Ms. Ulyss?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pape?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is PC 0925, Residential Development Plan, Highway 96 Townhomes, Map 22, Parcels 7, 167, and 178.02, current zoning RM8, property owner, Middle Tennessee Developers. Mr. Greer, would you please read us your staff report?
Property zoning for this is RM8. You saw a master development plan for this a few months ago. T-Squared Engineering has submitted on behalf of Middle Tennessee Developers a residential development plan for the Highway 96 townhomes development. The development contains 13.49 acres and is proposed to construct 104 townhouse units, 250 parking spaces, private roadways, and 8.13 acres of open space. The property is located on FEMA Firm Panel 4187C0135F, and no portion of the Highway 96 townhomes development is located within a flood hazard area Zone X. The properties to the north is zoned RS40. The properties to the south are zoned RSM40. The properties to the east across Highway 96 are zoned Commercial General and RS40. And the properties to the west are zoned R21 and 2 Family Residential. The Fairview Forward 2040 Comprehensive Plan designates the parcels that encompass the Highway 96 townhome development as both transition corridor and legacy residential medium. The transition corridor classification notes the appropriate land uses are single-family detached residential, office, civic, institutional, and the appropriate zone districts are RS40, and a new district that would permit the adaptive reuse of existing structures. The legacy residential medium classification notes the appropriate land use is single-family detached residential, and the appropriate zone districts are RS40 and R20. The property zoning of RM8 nor the proposed land use of attached dwellings is in alignment with the Fairview Forward plan. However, the property zoning has been in place prior to the adoption of the 2040 plan. Therefore, the owner can develop the property as current zoned, and the proposed land use of attached dwelling townhouses is a permitted use within the RM8 zone district. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the Highway 96 townhomes residential development plan in order to create 104 townhouse units within 19 buildings with all required parking spaces, 4 private roadways, 2 stormwater ponds, open spaces, and all required stormwater, water, and wastewater infrastructure as resubmitted on February 21st, 2025.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Do we have a motion for PC 0925?
Make a motion to approve PC 925.
Kelly?
Second.
Anderson? Do we have a representative tonight for this application? Ma'am, just state your name and address for the record, please.
Allison, short. Good evening, Allison Carollo with T-Square Engineering. We're located at 111 Southeast Parkway Court in Franklin. Here to answer any questions that you guys may have. I do believe that this plan, as a development plan, comes in before you tonight with substantial conformance of the master development plan that was approved in December.
Thank you. We'll open it up for comments, questions from the Planning Commission. I have 2 questions. First is really just a reminder from the past, and I'm only asking this because I cannot recall or find the documentation, but can you remind me why or how we cannot or require cul-de-sacs? I guess the fire truck turnaround.
the turnaround length is less than the requirement.
Than the dead end?
Exactly.
Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Less than
Okay.
150 feet.
I figured that was probably the case because most of those seemed short except for the one T on the bottom right. My second question is on one of the civil sheets, it talks about a wall, a property wall by others.
Correct.
So I guess the development would just require the developer to assume that responsibility. And I guess I'm just trying to figure out why then is that wall, is it necessary for retainage
Sure. Yes, sir.
slopes?
Yes, sir.
Can you help me understand that?
Absolutely, absolutely. So as a civil engineer, we are not structural engineers. We cannot certify structural designs, which would include retaining walls.
So you're
and
just
things
talking
like
about the
that.
design of the wall itself?
Exactly.
Okay.
So we have certified the elevations on our grading plan, and then when they go to pull a building permit effectively for that wall, they'll be required to come forth with structural.
Understood. Thank you for
Yes, sir.
clarifying that.
Mr. Chairman, I have a comment. This is probably more to staff or I guess it's in general, but I've mentioned it a couple meetings back. There's, the resource protection plan is submitted in here. It shows slopes of 15 to 20% and then 20% or greater. I think we've gotten into a bad habit of kind of lumping things together in single family standards. This is a multifamily application, and our code, section 13102.12B, talks about multifamily development and the slope protection stuff, and it clearly states that any area 20% slope or greater has to remain undisturbed. So I don't think this plan satisfies that part of our zoning ordinance. And then there's also the A part of that, the density gets reduced for any percentages of 15 to 20. Now that it's small percentages, it's not like it's huge areas, and I think the percentage still works out. I did a quick calculation, and I think it only removes the ability to do 4 or 5 lots from the permitted, and I think this is under that anyway. But I think we have an issue with the 20% needing to remain undisturbed because it is a multifamily development. It's tiny amounts, but if the resource protection plan was put up there, you'll see that there's certain areas that technically need to remain undisturbed.
Yes, and the way staff interprets that with our stormwater ordinance kind of instituting that same slope requirement, it says that areas that are less than 5,000 square feet can be ignored. So if you have like a 5 foot square area of 20%, like I don't think there's a reason not to touch that in that regard. So that is the way staff has interpreted it, that, areas, isolated pocket areas that are exceeding 20% do not have to be undisturbed.
Sorry, before you jump in. Sure. But what you're saying is you're using the stormwater ordinance to overrule our zoning ordinance, essentially, because the zoning ordinance is pretty clear. It's undisturbed if it's 20%, period, end of story. I just want to make sure I'm understanding
I wouldn't say
the interpretation.
overruling a zoning ordinance. It's more so the instance of 3 different scenarios in which we have this slope requirement. So the zoning ordinance has its own, the subdivision regulations has its own, and the stormwater ordinance has its own, and all 3 are contradicting, conflicting, and so as a staff, we've had to choose the most recent document that has been produced and approved to enforce, and that's
fair. And everybody's got an interpretation. My experience is that if there's 3 conflicting, it's the most stringent one is the one that you have to go with. I don't know if the attorneys have any say.
Yeah, and I've got.
Again, I just want to
go
make
ahead.
sure we're following our zoning ordinance, and we can't pick and choose when we do. So
Sure.
That I appreciate the explanation, though. Yep.
Allison, correct me if I'm wrong, but the areas that would be disturbed would be, a driveway on a lot, a small portion, if you got it pulled up, small portion of the roadway. Can you do a click share, please? We could probably just pull it up for you guys to see.
Correct. And I believe the stormwater ordinance doesn't regulate as to the areas that are shown in yellow. They were just provided for reference.
Yes. So it'd be only the areas in orange are exceeding 20%. And again, it even goes on to say in the stormwater ordinance that I have to pull it up actually, but something about the city engineer can grant special considerations for designs of roadways or necessary infrastructure for a subdivision, a development.
You look at that resource protection plan, and Ethan, I know it's a little bit off the screen, but a majority of those slopes are within the TDOT right-of-way. As part of our improvements, as required per TDOT, we're actually hoping to revise that and reduce that slope on there as well. So that'll actually be safer for travelers along the roadway.
For the right turn lane, is that right?
It's a left turn lane
Left
into the
turn.
development. Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Mr. McDonald, did you have a comment?
Don't any longer.
Thank you. I would just say, Mr. Pape, I do appreciate your comment. In most cases, it is worst case, even among various codes, building codes. But in this case, I would tend to understand that interpretation as being such a minor area. It kind of feels like I don't know that that benefits the community for us to preserve such small pockets. If it was a bigger area or green space and makes it more pleasing aesthetically, I totally support that. I just don't see that being a benefit, in my personal opinion. But
Sure.
Mr. Hogan.
I think Mr. Pape has a very fair interpretation. Just a couple of considerations. You have multiple ordinances or multiple regulations that overlap. The starting point is try to read them so that they don't conflict. And the specific would take precedence over the general. So I think that's what staff was trying to do with their interpretation of those multiple ordinances. So I think they're both fair interpretations, and there's good ways to get there either way.
On the master development plan that was approved in December, there was a exception from the City of Fairview Design Review Manual for architectural design for building elevations, the 70% brick requirement. That ultimately was masonry up to the bottom of the windowsill for each elevation. So they have provided an elevation drawing with their development plan submission showing that they are in compliance with their condition of approval for their master development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Any other comments, questions? Okay, thank you, Ms. Corolla. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Kelly,
Aye.
Mayor Anderson. Ms. Williams,
Aye.
Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Schulis,
Aye.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Mr. Pape.
No.
Motion carries 7-0. Next item is PC 10-25. Annexation request for 0 Crowcut Road, map 18, parcel 31, property owner Northcut Custom Homes LLC. Mr. Greer?
If you will give me one moment.
absolutely.
I failed to put an item in the presentation. Bree, if you'll go over to ClickShare, please. Item 1025 is Zero Crowcut Road annexation. My apologies for missing this one on the presentation. Tim Mangrum with Innovative Construction Company has submitted to the City of Fairview an annexation request for the entire parcel located on the west side of Crowcut Road, north of the intersection of Crowcut Road and Elrod Road. The parcel is designated as tax map 018, parcel 31. The property contains 28.75 acres and is currently zoned MGA 5 with Williamson County zoning. The entirety of the property is located within the urban growth boundary of the City of Fairview. Additionally, the parcel is contiguous to the current Fairview municipal boundaries, which is located at 1385 Highway 96. The parcel is located to the north, south, and east across Crowcut Road, and west are located within Williamson County and zoned MGA 5. The parcel of land on Crowcut Road is classified in the 2040 Fairview Forward Plan as residential high neighborhood. The residential high neighborhood future land use classification lists 5 zone districts and 4 land uses as appropriate. The 5 zone districts are RS5, RS8, RM8, RM12, and RM20. The 4 appropriate land uses are multifamily residential, single-family attached residential, single-family detached residential, and civic institutional. The applicant has expressed interest in bringing this property into the city and having it zoned RS15. You will have a rezoning for this property if this is to move tonight to the Board of Commissioners with a recommendation. Next month at the April meeting for a RS15 zoning on this property. RS15 is not in alignment with the 2040 plan. It is less dense than all the zoning that is in the 2040 comp plan. Considering this property allows for multi-family 20 units per acre, RS15 is 1 house per 15,000 square feet. The applicant provided the following description for the annexation and potential development. Approximately 28.75 acres that we are asking to annex into the City of Fairview with the intent to rezone to RS15 single family. This would allow for approximately 42 single family homes for a local home builder to have lots on to build. Staff recommends the Planning Commission provide a favorable recommendation to the Fairview Board of Commissioners to approve this request to annex the entirety of the property located at 0 Crowcut Road as indicated on the attached map with the following conditions of approval. This annexation request will be placed on Thursday, April 3rd, Board of Commissioners meeting agenda for consideration with the potential for a public hearing and second and final read to be held on Thursday, May 1st, Board of Commissioners meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Do we have a motion for PC 1025?
Move for approval.
Anderson, do we have a second?
Second.
Is that Pape?
Yeah.
Thank you. Just as a reminder for those listening, this is a recommendation that we're going to have for the Board of Commissioners who will make the ultimate decision as stated earlier in these notes. So, Mr. Mangrum, just for the record, please restate your name.
Tim Mangrum, 7326 Fernvale Road.
Thank you, sir. We'll open it up for comments, questions from the Planning Commission. Just one point of clarity, Mr. Mangrum, I mean, it's already stated here, but it seems like all the utilities that you have are pretty much already running on Crowcut, correct?
Yes. There is an existing 2-inch force main sewer line that we will have to upgrade to a 4-inch, but the water, electricity, and all's there.
Just curious, to what extent do you have to upgrade that line to?
All the way to 96.
All the way to 96, okay.
It's only, 3/8 of a mile at the most.
Okay.
It's not a very long distance.
Comments, questions from the Planning Commission? All right, thank you, sir. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mayor Anderson,
Aye.
Mr. Pape,
Aye.
Ms. Williams. Aye. Ms. Schilling,
Aye.
Mr. Magner,
Aye.
Ms. Shoelist,
Aye.
Mr. Kelly,
No.
Mr. McDonald,
Aye.
Item PC 1025 carries by a vote of 7-1. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is PC 1125, Residential Development Plan, Westview Phase 1B, Map 46, Parcel 44, current zoning RS15 Pod, property owner Boulevard Building Group. Mr. Greer, if you will, please read your staff report.
This property is a RS15 pod, so it is a full development that was originally approved. They are coming in with a development plan for Phase 1B. What you see on the screen is the overall master development plan and their phasing plan in there. Crunk Engineering has submitted a development plan for Phase 1B of the Westview subdivision, a single-family detached residential development. The Westview subdivision development contains a total of 250 single-family detached residential lots located within 4 phases. The development is zoned RS15 Pod, and Phase 1A, which contains 55 lots, is under construction. The proposed Phase 1B contains 25 single-family residential lots on 9.92 acres. Also, Phase 1B will extend a 50-foot public right-of-way that is being created in Phase 1A, which is named Westmount Loop. Westmount Loop will continue in Phase 2, which is located to the west of Phase 1B. Phase 1B also contains 2 open space areas. One space is an improved open space that contains 2.17 acres and will be home to 5-foot wide walking trail that will connect into the sidewalk system of Phase 1A. Open space number 2 is an unimproved open space that contains 1.98 acres and will be the location of a stormwater detention pond. The property for Phase 1B is located on FEMA Firm Panel 4187C0135F, and no portion of Phase 1B is located within a flood hazard area. The properties to the north and northwest are future Phase 1C and Phase 2 of the Westview subdivision and are zoned RS15 Pod. The master development plan for the Westview residential subdivision was approved by the Board of Commissioners on second reading at the November 5th, 2020 Board of Commissioners meeting. The master development plan approval was by Ordinance 2020-21, which contains several conditions related to the approval. The one condition that applies to Phase 1 of the development reads as follows: no subdivision phase beyond Phase 1 of Westview subdivision as described in Ordinance 2020-21 shall be undertaken or platted, and no more than 100 homes shall be permitted for building or construction within Westview subdivision as described in Ordinance 2020-21 prior to the widening and completion of widening construction accepted by Williamson County, Tennessee of the section of Overby Road, formerly and commonly known as Givens Cut, to 3 lanes of travel between the intersections of Overby Road and Givens Cut at Highway 100 and extending approximately 350 feet west to the intersection of Overby Road at Overby Road East. The current approvals for Westview subdivision total 55 lots in Phase 1A, which is currently under construction. The approval of Phase 1B would add 25 more lots, giving a total of 80 approved lots. This total of 80 lots would be below the established threshold of 100 lots that requires road improvements to be completed. Therefore, an approval of the preliminary plat residential development plan for Phase 1B would not require road improvements to be completed at this time. The next phase, Phase 1C, contains 20 lots and will meet the threshold of 100. At that time, road improvements will need to be completed prior to any additional phases beyond Phase 1 to be platted or permitted for construction. Staff recommends the Planning Commission approve the Westview subdivision development preliminary development plan in order to create 25 single-family detached lots, extend a public right-of-way Westmont Loop, create 2 open spaces, create 1 stormwater pond, and install all necessary stormwater, water, and wastewater infrastructure as resubmitted on March 3rd, 2025. And as we have been through before, this falls into Article 10 of the zoning ordinance, 10203.8 of the substantial compliance. So the 10 items of substantial compliance when looking at a subsequent development plan in compared to the overall master development plan.
Thank you, Mr. Greer. Do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve PC 1125.
Valley, do we have a second? Williams? Do we have a representative tonight for this application? Good evening, sir. If you'll state your name and address for the record.
With Crunk Engineering, 7112 Crossroads Boulevard, Franklin.
Thank you. So I'm going to start off with one just clarifying question. Based on the conditional approval, it says Phase 1 and no more than 100 homes. I'm just asking, did we have Phase 1A, Phase 1B, Phase 1C back when the original plan was approved, or is this taking some liberties with the nomenclature of Phase 1? Do we have understanding of that?
Your question is correct. The original approval did not have subsections or sections to the Phase 1. However, the number of lots have stayed the same. So they have taken Phase 1 and they have just divided it into smaller subsections. They're still maintaining no more than 100 lots, just as it was originally approved.
Thank you. So, Mr. Hogan, if I'm reading this legalistically, they use the term "and." So that would just, to me, it might be semantics, and generally I'm not opposed to this phase. I'm just trying to make sure that we're not going back on a conditional approval. So if you read those first 2 sentences under that conditional approval in italics, please.
I would also add in Phase 1B along with 1A is a total of 80 lots. So they are still also under the 100 lots as well. So they're still under the threshold as well.
Thank you. And I agree. I just want to make sure that.
Yeah, I think the use of the term "and" there actually captures exactly what subdividing Section 1 would prevent. So even though they subdivided Phase 1, the "and" 100 homes is a catch-all to say, and you still can't go over 100 homes. So I think you're meeting the condition as long as you stay under 100 homes. And even though they've recharacterized what is Phase 1, it's all an amount that was less than Phase 1. So I think you're in compliance with the original condition.
I'm curious because I'm not for sure if anybody was on the Planning Commission when this was originally approved or can recall. Ms. Anderson, why would the city have placed a limit of only 1 phase if there was a stipulation to that? I mean, I get the 100 homes too, but to me, we can have Phase 1Z and.
I guess my answer would be I do not remember.
And, that's a fair answer.
I do not either.
Okay. Ms. Schulist. It is semantics. I'm just trying to understand what the city was thinking at the time so that we were not going back on that conditional approval.
Mr. Magner, Phase 1 on the original master development plan was 100 homes. And so it was pre-planning essentially. If they were to break up that phase into sections, it was Phase 1 or 100 homes because there was 100 homes in Phase 1.
Okay. Well, based on that, Mr. Hogan's interpretation, it sounds like we are not at risk of modifying that condition of approval.
I think that's exactly why they put the number on it, so they couldn't enlarge Phase 1 and say, oh, well, if we just bring in Phase 2 into Phase 1, then we don't have to do that improvement. So I suspect that's why they put an actual number on it.
Thanks, sir. Okay, thank you. Mr. Pape?
I just have a quick question, and I know I mean, my gut is that obviously they're doing this to avoid the road improvements for now and push that off. But this is an on-site sewage treatment facility as well. Is that completely approved now? And that is that approved for all these lots as well?
So the on-site wastewater treatment facility and system is approved for the 80 lots within Phase 1A and 1B.
Okay. So you guys have that approval from the state for those 80 lots? Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Will do.
And I will add too, I wanted to go back and double check that we did not need the second means of access. And I think that we understand every home will be sprinkled, correct? So that's clarification that.
Yes, sir. We understand the requirement of either 2 access points or having the home sprinkled if there's 30 lots or more. So, correct. Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, so I just wanted to make sure that we all understood that. Yeah, it's a lot of homes to have one access point, so that initially raised a red flag, but understanding that's how we're compliant. Is the mailbox service centrally, is that within that, right on that border of, between the two phases?
Yes, sir. The mail kiosk area should be in the amenity center that was a part of Phase 1A.
Okay, so it has parking spaces there associated to it?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Bree, if you go to the next slide, this is Phase 1B that tonight is up for approval.
Any additional comments, questions? Okay, thank you, sir. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Schulist?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pape?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Next item is PC 12-25, acceptance of infrastructure, Cumberland Estates Phase 1, current zoning R20 pod, property owner, Cumberland LLC. Mr. Greer. Mr. Broadbent.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So, consulted with our city attorney, Josh Logan and Patrick Carter, on this resolution. I think the city has seen these in the past. Essentially, a maintenance bond has occurred for at least 1 year, or the paving has been completed for at least 1 year, the final topping. And so the next step for them is to release that bond and then for the city to accept the infrastructure. And you can add anything I may have butchered, but that is to my understanding what this document entails. And it's only a recommendation to the BOC, so.
I believe that's correct. And I think, I didn't review this form, Mr. Carter did before he left, so he worked with the engineer on getting that in the proper format.
Thank you, Mr. Hogan. And then for clarity, when we talk about infrastructure, we're talking about roadways? Or is it all infrastructure?
All infrastructure, so
Okay.
drainage, as-built were submitted, reviewed and approved, and so it'd be anything that the infrastructure would include in a subdivision, as
Understood.
well as ponds, so.
So our planning commission has not seen these submissions in any recent, or from what I understand, we're going to start seeing more and more of these as our developments are completed of phases.
Something Ethan just mentioned, that there are certain subdivisions that will maintain the ponds, and that this is one of them. So the HOA would be maintaining these ponds. So anything the city would be owning would be the drainage infrastructure, the pipes, the inlets, and what's within the right-of-way, sidewalks, street trees, et cetera.
Okay, thank you, sir. Mr. Pape.
Yeah, I have a quick question. When we get to this point, does anybody go out and do a final inspection? Okay, so somebody went out, did a final inspection. We feel good that there's no major repairs to be done when we're taking
there were
it.
multiple inspections that occurred. It was a process that started, I would say, and I don't know if the applicant's here tonight, probably 6 to 8 months ago.
So it was like an overview, punch out list. Let's get this thing looking good for the city to accept their infrastructure. And they've been great at getting things done. So it's been a long process, but we've got to this point. Yes, sir.
Sorry, now I'll call up any representatives to this application.
Hello, I'm Jason Beavers with Old South Properties. 262 Robert Rose Drive, Murfreesboro, 37129.
Thank you, sir. So I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
Donald?
Second.
Pape? This is particularly for phase one only, correct?
Correct. We have to go by the plating process. So phase one was phase one, and then there's actually a next one called phase two.
And I'm only asking this question because I'm familiar with other phases. Phase one has all private mailboxes, so a public mailbox is not part of the infrastructure for this,
That did not
correct?
kick into phase 3.
Three, okay, all right. At this point, my opinion is it's a recommendation to the Board of Commissioners. As you stated, we're relying on our great staff of the city to have gone through that review and technicality. So I think from this point, it would mostly be procedural questions from the Planning Commission. No additional comments? Sir, thank you for being here tonight. Ms. Howe, would you please call the vote?
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pape?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Shulis?
Aye.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Last item is PC 13-25, acceptance of infrastructure, Cumberland Estates Phase 2. Current zoning R20 pod, current owner Cumberland Estates LLC. Mr. Broadbent, any additional commentary on this one?
I'm good. It's the same story, different book.
Yes, sir, thank you. So do we have a motion?
Make a motion to approve PC 1325.
Callie?
Second.
McDonald? Any commentary, questions on this item? Hearing none, Ms. Howe? Sir, did you wish to add any
I
additional
just
for
wanted
phase
to
two?
say, staff, I appreciate all their working with us and helping us get to this point.
I understand. Thank you very much. Ms. Howe, please.
Mr. Kelly?
Aye.
Mr. McDonald?
Aye.
Mr. Pape?
Aye.
Ms. Williams?
Aye.
Ms. Schilling?
Aye.
Mayor Anderson?
Aye.
Mr. Magner?
Aye.
Ms. Shulis?
Aye.
Motion carries 8-0. Next item is bonds and letters of credit, which we have 0 listed. We will move into reports and discussion for the individual departments, starting first with city planning staff. Mr. Greer, do you have any comments, questions tonight?
Thank you all for your efforts in tonight. I know that it was a lengthy agenda. We also have quite a lengthy agenda if everything continues to move forward for the April meeting. I think we have 8 or 9 items on that one with some pretty detailed plan sets coming out for different projects that are currently in construction, for a couple modifications on those, and then a couple different rezoning pieces. And we are staying very busy in our office. We do have a discussion topic that's listed down with Curtis's report tonight that we'll get into here in just a minute. We as a staff are looking for some guidance from the Planning Commission about a particular challenge that we're facing in the city, and want some a good discussion to be had with that. So with that, again, thank you for all your time and effort, but I'll turn it over to whoever's next.
City manager? Mr. Dr-
Nothing tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. City engineering?
Hello, Planning Commission. Ethan is pulling up a couple links I sent him. He's going to put them on the screen here. We had some discussions with our Public Works Department about some concerns about some trees on what is now Northwest Highway, but is going to be Belvoir Drive. So it's going to be the right-of-way that is frontage of Belvoir Phase 1A and the future Woodwick Cove, which you guys have not seen yet, but it'd be Phase 1 of that subdivision. It is to our understanding that Planning Commission and potentially Board of Commissioners in the past had voiced the desire to keep that cosmetic feature of that roadway with the lining of pine trees and oak trees, with a smaller road for the subdivision itself, along with adjacent property owners. And if you don't mind, can you click share? Thank you. I keep wanting to call it the Dom. And so here's a street view image of that roadway, those trees. And to go back to what I said about the Public Works Department, they've been receiving some communication from future homeowners and potentially current homeowners along Belvoir about those trees leaning towards those properties that are going to be constructed. And those are rather large trees. Their root system is contained within, in some places, the right-of-way of the road. And so really, when those homes are built, the driveways are going to be going onto, I'm going to call it Belvoir Drive. And so some trees will be having to be taken out. And if you could pull up the plot plan for Lot 112, here's our first plot plan that came through for this subdivision. And so you see that black X is where they removed one tree, trying not to remove as many as possible. And so what occurred is an issue with the driveway and the existing swale that exists between the edge of pavement and that future lot. And so when you put a driveway in, you're obstructing that swale. So you either do a culvert underneath the driveway or a depressed driveway. And so the builder had great difficulties in trying to figure out what to do. I think ultimately they landed with culverts. And so now they're expanding that swale, and by doing that, it's causing, I think damage to some of the trees. And so now there's concern with the longevity of those trees and whether or not they're going to live or fall over in the future. And I know we just had a crazy storm past Saturday. Luckily, none of the trees went down, but I think it's staff's opinion, and what we're also, as Ethan mentioned before, looking for guidance on what to do here. Because I know the whole goal of the Planning Commission was to, keep that corridor, but I think from a life safety perspective, it might be better to remove those trees. And just to go to the final plat, real quick, Ethan, the Planning Commission or Board of Commissioners, I can't remember which one, had planned this 5-foot access easement that would be offset from the right-of-way so that the sidewalk can be behind those trees. Now, if we're going to remove the trees, we would still keep the sidewalk there, but I think it might be a great opportunity to use funds in the tree fund to plant street trees in the future. Now, you would have your opinion and desire for what types of trees to make it either look as it was or better. So that's why we're here, and we're asking for some discussion to be had on what we think is best for the city and so on. Yes, Mr. Daughter.
I met with Todd Bratcher on this street, and it looks like, to me, I believe there's like 4 or 5 houses already built coming up. Looks like, if they fall, they're hitting the house. It's just no way around it. And then I was talking to Todd, and if we make a decision to clear the trees, it makes sense to do as many before there's construction. It'd be a lot easier to clean them up. So, I think as we seek direction, I think time is of the essence, I guess. I would hate for one of those trees to hit one of those houses, and I don't know, with our knowledge of it, and I'm not sure if the city has any liability, or what that is, but I think, in my conscience, I think it is a risk. I don't think it's a matter of if, I think it's a matter of when, just looking at the trees.
So
Thank
I'm
you.
just curious, so, our subdivision regs require tree plantings. These would not be required through here, is that correct?
Yeah, I might be speaking out of turn, but I think from our research, we discovered that, typically road frontage is improved with new subdivisions, and I think that was not done because of what reason exactly, Ethan?
With this particular development, they were taking existing Northwest Highway that goes around the perimeter of what's shown on this plat and converted that into a subdivision street and then creating new Northwest Highway through the middle of the development.
Right.
And with that, they were, the intent was to maintain the character of the street, the small town tree lined street, and keep that existing character there. Ultimately, as time has progressed, several of those trees have fallen in recent storms. They are currently located within the right-of-way. They're mainly pine trees that are weak in nature. There are a few hardwood trees down through there that we would seek to save and keep those as protected as possible. But ultimately, the pines is what we would be looking to remove down through there. I think it would be a great opportunity to kind of maintain a similar experience driving down through there if you put some form of evergreen tree that maybe was not as tall. Several of these trees, are over 60 feet in height, and the houses are 50 feet off of the right-of-way. And so if they fall from the right-of-way, they're crashing through somebody's front door, which opens the city, since they're in the city right-of-way, that opens the city up a little bit for some liability. And ultimately, I think it would be a wise decision for us to remove it and use some of our tree bank funds to replant and restabilize that area along there for the protection of the current homeowners, future homeowners down through there, and just looking for guidance from y'all.
Mr. Chair. I think the trees down there, the way the canopy is over the road is absolutely beautiful. But I do have to say, a few years ago, my neighbor's 60-foot tall tree fell and hit my house, took out my deck in the back, and normally that time of night, there was always someone sitting on that deck. But I'd had surgery, so we were inside the house. And my son, thank God, was down the street because it crashed into his room, took out the deck that we usually sit on, and those trees fall so fast. It's unbelievable how there's no way to get out of the way. So it's just a blessing that nobody in my family was killed that day. So if there's any chance that one of those trees could fall and hit a front porch, the house, or anyone in that yard, I think it's a good opportunity to take those out. I would like to say that if they are taken out, take them completely down, including the root ball, because I don't want another situation like on Northwest where the utility went through and chopped them half in two, which looks horrible. I'm just very saddened by that area. I hope that at some time those are removed completely, but that's just, an experience that I had, and that's something I wanted to speak to.
I will just note, just reiterating what Curtis said, this is not the developer coming to us and seeking to get a change of any condition. the home builder that's building homes in there, they have not approached us to change any of their conditions. This was taken on by Curtis, myself, our Public Works Director, Todd Bratcher, City Manager Darty, to be proactive and noticing that, hey, we have an issue here, we need to take care of this. And so just wanted to make sure that that is clear, that we didn't have a developer come and say, hey, I know we wanted to save those trees, but we're going to cut them all down now. No, this was us being proactive to make sure that it was safe for all people involved.
Mr. Chair, sorry. No, I just wanted to finish a thought there. And I appreciate that y'all are being proactive in this, because as much as trees mean to everyone, and I know that you've put on the, an idea, and, which is perfect for this area. We have tree bank funds, and we can replant something that's safer in that area. And I just appreciate y'all looking into that and seeing that it would be potentially, dangerous and a life safety issue.
Thank you, Mr. Pape.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. I live on that side of town, drive that road every day when I come into town. Obviously, it is beautiful. But, we've got to do the right thing, and more are falling over. So that's a challenge. I don't know if we have an access to like an arborist or anybody, but I would recommend we definitely save any that we can, because there are some beautiful trees. And I think there are a few that are probably way more stable and in better shape. So any that can be saved, absolutely. And the more professional advice we can get on that of an actual arborist, I think would be great. Are you guys thinking about, obviously right now there's only development on one side of the road. Eventually there likely will be on the other. The other side has an even steeper bank, and some of those trees literally are in the bank. Are you guys figuring go ahead and do the whole street at one shot?
If I remember correctly, that subdivision that is future to the north would not be along the frontage of what is now Northwest Highway. Okay. So, but not to say it couldn't be developed in the future.
I think if we're going to bring an arborist out, they should look at those too, because like I said, that side of the road, the bank is even steeper, and some of those may be less stable. And that road, 15 feet wide, some of those trees, if they fall in that direction, it's still going to end up in the same place. So I think you have to look at the whole thing. I hate it. It's such a classic drive. I think anybody who, who's lived on that side of town, but at the same time, pretty soon we won't all be driving that when the other part of the road is built. We absolutely need to use whatever resources we have to get trees replanted, and let's make sure they're significant trees. It's kind of funny. You drive along there, and the builder did plant one tree in each front yard, and it's literally a 1-inch diameter tree, and it looks so silly with all those other trees right now. So we just need to keep that in mind in the future, because that would have been great if that could have been a 4-inch caliber tree in that front yard, because I can vouch for it over there. I've planted a few on my property where we could use some more here, and it's amazing how quick when you plant a 4-inch caliber tree in 2 or 3 years, it is a nice, significant tree. So let's really make the effort to do it right, because that is a significant piece of history in Fairview of driving that stretch of road. So thank you.
I just have 2 quick comments. I almost hate to use the tree bank fund, though, for potential developer-driven projects, is one comment, especially if there's going to be additional curb cuts. Some of those are going to be removed and have to be either replaced or resettled. My only other comment, and I agree fundamentally with this, I could probably name a half a dozen streets in Fairview that has the same condition, maybe to not the same extent and frequency of trees, but I mean,
Just come to my house.
that's 80% of Fairview. I could name a number of trees, so I just recommend that the city needs to be careful about setting some kind of precedent that we're going to go through. I mean, we don't even have trees leading up to the city hall. And so I too have been kind of curious how we're using our tree bank fund. We've been contributing to it for a while. So I'd hate to contribute if a developer or private entity needs to be paying for that. And secondly, be cautious about how far this goes. Any other?
As of right now, to my knowledge, in the last 13 years, there's been input but no outflow from the tree bank. So there's about $560,000 in there.
Okay, so we have a lot. So can we get some trees out here in front of the city hall?
Sure.
Anything else, city engineering?
I think just to respond to that, if there is any, life safety issue, please, contact Public Works Department to give notice, so that we can, review it and, obviously limit it to trees that are within public right of way and not just trees around individual homes. Like, that's not something we could encroach that property on. That's all I have.
Thank you, Curtis. City Attorney, Mr. Hogan. Thank you. Planning Commission roundtable, just following our typical arrangement. Mr. Pape? Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
I have nothing to add. Just to, I guess, piggyback off of the last comments that were made regarding the tree removal or potential of other troubled areas that may need it. I think also a requirement that, maybe not a requirement, but a stipulation that we would take into consideration before removing it from the city's perspective is that, is it within reach of a structure, right? So I'm just trying not to get you guys inundated with, I've got a tree out front that's at a 45-degree angle, you guys need to come and remove it. Well, it's not within 250 yards of a structure. It's probably not something we need to put on the priority list, but that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Calley? Thank you. Ms. Schulis?
Nothing for me.
Thank you. Ms. Williams?
Nothing for me, thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Shanley?
Nothing.
Thank you. Mayor Williams, or Mayor Anderson, sorry.
So I did want to point out that this is on city right-of-way. This is not, I mean, the city's the one who would stand to have the issue if this tree fell and either hurt someone or damaged a house because it's on city right-of-way. I don't think that we should entertain like removing people's trees on private property, but if it's city-owned property and it could, potentially hurt someone or damage property, then we have to look at it. So, I talk about this a lot, but I'm really seeking some help with this. Right now we're paving Castleberry. I've probably been talking to the residents in Castleberry, and they've made me an honorary member of their group, even though I don't live there, so they can contact me and I can contact the whole group about these dump trucks. And I know I bring this up a lot, but, I just got a message recently about they're so excited about the paving, and there are dump trucks driving over our new paving. And that's not acceptable to me. I know that there may not be a stipulation on their plan for them to use the construction road, but if we're going to spend this money on the paving and these people are so excited about this, those dump trucks, I don't care if they're inconvenienced, because they don't care that they tried to intimidate me when I stopped them and they surrounded my car with one of the residents in my car with me. They didn't care about that. And they told me that our police officers couldn't stop them when they were speeding, and that they would get the ticket torn up if it happened. And it's just, I'm done. I'm over this. I've watched it today because I've traveled throughout the community, and I've watched these dump trucks, and they are just disregarding our citizens, our speed limits, and now our expensive paving that we're putting down. And they have alternate routes. They have construction entrance. And I don't care if it's not on the plan that they need to use it. They're not going to travel across our new paving when they've got an alternate route. So help me with this. Do I have to go park out there so they cannot pass me? I'm over it.
Mayor, the Aiden Woods Phase 2 development has an approved construction entrance through Aiden Borough, Aiden Woods Phase 1 of Castleberry. Aiden Woods Phase 3 has a separate approved construction entrance. I'm not sure where you're particularly speaking about. I assume that those trucks are going to Phase 2,
They
traversing
are.
through there, and not going to the Phase 3 side of it that's accessed off of Crowcut. As far as speeding, Mr. Darty, we can speak with Chief Humphreys about increasing police presence out there. It seems, Mayor, if it's as significant of an issue as you speak of, that it seems to be on a daily matter, so
I've got
probably just
I've
a
got
day out there
video.
would probably be beneficial.
I've got video of it.
And so we can address that. As far as stopping them from driving on city streets and accessing a board-approved, planning commission-approved construction access point, that would, they have a vested right to be able to utilize that access point as the planning commission saw fit to approve at the time of approval. And so they will be able to access that via per their plan, utilizing city-owned streets, just as they would be able to access everywhere else in the city. As far as the speeding goes, we can address that with our police officers.
So we don't have an issue with them driving over our expensive brand-new paving.
Not preferred, but just about anywhere in this city that we do paving, we will have some form of construction project relatively close to that paving project that people will be driving across or down.
So possibly if somebody's car breaks down and they can't move it immediately, that wouldn't be a problem, I guess.
We do not allow vehicles to be parked on subdivision streets for longer than a 24-hour continuous period.
Well, park and move. Everybody, let's keep Fairview beautiful and pick up trash and not throw it out. And please don't throw out your mattresses. They can go to the dump in Pinewood. And thank you to all the staff for all of your hard work and the board. I appreciate it. I'm done.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say thanks to everybody tonight. I know it was a long night. My only comment, I'd like to suggest to the city and the Board of Commissioners, we're doing a lot with the new development, but I think there's a lot of opportunity for our existing developments. What can we do to encourage, especially those properties as you enter town, to spruce the place up a little bit, you know? Just a coat of paint sometime, picking up some trash and debris would go a long way. We got a lot of nice things happening here, and just trying to encourage the city. So I'm not sure how we can do that as a city, but it would sure be nice to encourage that where we may. So that's just a comment. So
I will note that we are currently working on rewriting our zoning ordinance, calling the development code, the new development code of the city of Fairview. Our staff review period ends at the end of this month. They will, TPUDC will receive our staff comments back, and then they will draft the public draft. I expect it to be out by the end of April. They'll come in and do a public presentation, answer any questions, and then there will be a 30-day window for public comment to happen after that point. Should be, like I said, towards the end of April, early May, for the public draft to come out. In that, there is some pieces about revitalization and what the driving points of emphasis are for if you alter the site a certain percentage, then you have to come into conformance with the new code and new requirements and update the building and give it a new coat of paint and different things that you have to do. So we are working on developing stricter regulations regarding that.
thank you, sir. All right. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Motion adjourned. Thank you.